Chad Reid here at Ironman Motocross of Nations. You've had a lot of big Motocross of Nations experiences in your career. What stands out from your side, from your own personal rides, and I guess Team Australia as a team?
Man, I would say that, like, you know, standing today at 43 retired, it's your first experience. My first experience was 2000 at St. John's Angeli. You know, being based in Australia, coming and seeing, you know, the best Americans, all the best the Europeans, and not having that experience, and like kind of taking that experience, that moment, the understanding, and then multiple years later when I was obviously more based in America, I was winning races in America, just how different that, you know, you go from, how would you explain it? Like, you're almost like the little kid where you're looking around. Like, I have my children here today, and they're all looking around at the riders, and they're fans. I feel like I was a fan that was participating in an event where, you know, obviously when I, you know, was able to win races and be at the highest level, and I was coming to the event expecting to be, you know, one of the top 3 guys, that experience changes a lot. Yeah. But you still have so much respect. The MX GP paddock is something that's near and dear. My first experience outside of Australia was here, and so it's always nice to come around and see all the people. And as far as like the Australian team, I mean, just the evolution of it is really cool. You know, like, I think for 20 plus years they were always a team that was anywhere from P4 to P10. You know, through those 20 years, they had kind of guys come and go. You know, some guys ride GPs regularly. And then we started to fight for podiums. We finally got one in 11, and then, you know, the rebirth of, you know, having multiple. It's always hard to have a team, you know, that's kind of like, you can never be a one-man show. You got to have multiple guys. And so the brothers have been able to do it in a really nice way, and you've seen it, you know, P4, P3, P2, and then they won last year. So it's really cool to see, and just like any racing, you're only ever as good as your last one. Yeah. And it all resets this weekend, and I think it'll be really fun. Going to these events in Europe, there's a special feeling, but I must say that walking around the paddock here today, there's still a special feeling.
There's a big buzz today.
There's a buzz today, and I really like that, because, like, for me as a dad, I want my kids, like, you kind of tell them, I'm like, look, you've been to a lot of races, but you have not yet been to an MX Nations. And I was really excited to share that experience with them, and I think it's really cool that there's a special buzz. It's not, and again, not that I don't know, America has, I think, grown to love this event, yeah, and they're embracing it more. And then I think a lot of people from all over the world are also starting to travel here. So I think as a fan, it's really special and really cool to see the nations thriving here in the States.
And you got to race Namur, which is at Motocross of Nations. I think that was your first year in GPs. How was that?
It was my first, my first year in GPs, and I won the first moto, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first time that, I think it was the first time an Australian had won a moto. So that was really cool.
Did you like that track?
Oh, I loved that track.
Did you?
Absolutely loved it. It's funny, you know, like, it was this track that was just like a big trail ride through the woods. Yeah. And you had to be, it wasn't about just, you know, going fast. It was about being really calculated, being clever, picking good lines. I remember there was 2 huge, like, crazy drop-offs. One we could double, and the other one was kind of like a step down where you couldn't jump it. And it just, yeah, and I guess the history, like, for me, I'm big on history and acknowledging, you know, all the guys that had raced prior to me, you know, guys that had won the races and pulled over and drank beers. And I wasn't fortunate enough to have a big enough lead to drink a beer, but I'm not a beer drinker, so I probably wouldn't have done it anyway. But
I think Everett had a nice tea one year is a bit different.
The legend that is our sport and what is Motocross of Nations, Namur, you know, was a shining star of it, I think.
And other ones that stand out for me is your battle with Crowley. It was on Instagram earlier this week, and 09 was awesome, and you won the moto in 11, the years you got on the podium, I think, at St. John. Were those two for you, how you felt on the bike, really showing your level those 2 years?
I think it's fair to say that 09 and 11 would be my two favorite ones. Right. And both weekends, we should have been at worst a P2 team. 09, it was really special. Like Tony and I have always been really close friends. Always had a lot of respect. And shared something special from friendship. And so for him to be MX, what do you guys call it? MXoN champion. Yeah. And I was, the 450 national champion that year.
The two big dogs just going
So
on.
it was kind of like really cool. And then again, it was an event that was in his backyard in Italy, and the track was really unique. It wasn't one that anyone had rode before, so it was really fair, and it was a lot of motocross, but it had some cool, American style big jumps and stuff. So I really enjoyed that particular event. And then St. John's. St. John's it's one of the coolest. I know that a lot of people talk about RNA, but for me, St. John's is really special from a riding standpoint. Now, I remember, the big triple in the middle. I get chills even today talking about, like, when you made a ride at the top of the hill, you just kind of have this, you don't see anything other than just fans in front of you, and you just launch. And it feels like you're just jumping into the crowd, and it was like you just jump into this big old fishbowl. It's even hard to describe, but and again, we're over 15 years later, and it still gives me goosebumps, and it's so cool. So yeah, many special moments at the Nations.
Jett Lawrence was talking to Jeffrey Hurlings at Lommel, and he said he could find a weakness in Caroli and Geyser and all his guys he race against, but he can't find one in Jett Lawrence. If you're racing Jett Lawrence, how would you try to beat him? Because no one's figured it out yet.
That's a hard one to answer, because I think that it's, as a racer, you're competitive and you study. I study Jett in a very different way. I'm a dad, with children that look up to Jett, and and I see probably weaknesses that people don't see.
Right.
And to be truthful, they're very little, and no one is able to, shine light on it. I think that is Jett's strength, is when he has a weakness, his ability to correct it is really high. So I'm going to probably not answer it, just because Jett's Australian. Mm-hmm. Anything I say seems to be used against me. Yeah. But I am the biggest Jett fan. My kids love him. As a dad, if I could, want my children to replicate such a beautiful style and just a great rider, it would be Jett Lawrence. So I have nothing but respect and love for Jett, but anything that I say that could be critical or like it's a loaded question for me, so I'm going to shy away from it. Sorry.
That's all right. So Jorge Prado, maybe the biggest question I saw him from, he was on an 85 at Matterley Basin, and I've never seen anything like this season. You've worked with him, and it's went a lot worse than I thought, and even worse probably than he thought. What are your thoughts on what he could do better, or the bike could have done better, because it turned into a disaster?
Yeah, it was definitely a disaster on both sides. I don't know that Jorge sleeps at night thinking that he was his best version of himself, and I don't know that Kawasaki can put their hand up and say that they, everything was roses from their side. So I just hope that going forward for the sport, we get the best version of Jorge. I think that's needed. Because I think if you take the names out of it, you just want to race good, watch good riders from all over the world. Jorge's still young, so I think it's still important that we get to see the best of him in the AMA Nationals. So I don't think it's my place to pick and choose what he did right or wrong, but I think I just, as a fan of the sport, I want to see the best version of Jorge Prado come out swinging in 2026.
Whenever I heard you were working with him at club, and obviously you'd experience with Kawasaki, and you Oscar knew your own difficulties at factory Kawasaki, it felt you were the perfect person to bridge that gap. was it close to being bridged when you were there? Because you obviously have the advice of both sides.
You know, like the scenario and the situation, I think was very different than mine. From Kawasaki's side and from the rider's side. You know, like I helped. I think Jorge is a super nice kid. He's super respectful to me, and so therefore, you know, I tried to help. You know, more from a racer to racer.
And you knew as coming from Europe and all that, he'd leave
like again, I think the easiest way to say it is, you know, can I contribute? Can I help in all areas because I've lived all those areas? But you also have to want to take that help, and you also want to change it for the better, right? I didn't know that Jorge ever. I think I was there too late. I think it was already too far gone.
Final question. I don't even know what to ask you about Haiden Deegan. So I'm just going to say your thoughts on Haiden Deegan, everything that's happened recently, and obviously the jump to the 450s. What is your opinion? Because you've again been there, seen there, done it. You've had to race Ricky and the build up for that and everything. So.
Yeah, I think. Hayden's a unique talent. You know, I think on motocross, I wouldn't underestimate him on motocross. I think that he is clever. I think he's young, and he makes, you know, decisions and mistakes like all of us did at that age. You know, you can't always shine light from the eyes of a 43-year-old retired guy because there's so many things that you did, you know, to get to this point that you have the understanding that I do today. And so I think nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. Has he made big mistakes? Yes. But I wouldn't underestimate him. Supercross, I think, is going to be his biggest challenge. You know, I think that there's some things that he's probably the closest version of Ricky that I've seen. And so it'll be really interesting to see how he goes on a 450 in Supercross. Time will tell.
Ricky said that to race you, Stefan Everts, Wyndham McGrath, he rode above his limit because he thought you guys couldn't ride the edge. Jett and Haiden would maybe be a similar scenario. Do you think Haiden can push Jett to above Jett's limit the way Ricky was able to do with you guys, or what are your thoughts on that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, that's always hard because I think that they both have strengths in different areas. Jett's a clever guy. I really believe that he's a student of the sport. He, you know, he's becoming of age too. I think that what people, you know, I mean, even as shiny as it's all been, you know, Jett's made little mistakes along the way. And I think that he's coming into a period of his life where his like perspective is good and he's getting on top of all those little mistakes. And that's what's going to be really hard, you know, like Hayden's about to enter that part of his life where he makes a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. Jett's kind of got over that hump. So I think it'll be hard for Haiden. I think Jett is really quite clever. Studies a lot, and it'll be a hard one to beat.
Well, Chad, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.